YouTube? It's your boy Antonio Knight, and I am back at it again with another video for you guys.
And Kayla was a senior at the University of California, Santa Barbara, a big party school. And one Friday evening, Kayla and her friends were at a big party, and Kayla was having a great time, but she was starting to feel really tired. And so she asked her friends if maybe they wanted to leave early, but none of them did. And so Kayla left on her own. Luckily, her house was just down the road, and so she was at her front door in a matter of minutes. That night, her two roommates, who were also college seniors, had decided to stay in and just have a nice night with a couple of friends having some wine. And so when Kayla walked inside, she happened to turn to the right, and she looked on the closest wall where there was a sofa, and she saw there was a guy laying there with a blanket up to his chin, and his eyes were wide open. She didn't recognize him, but he was staring at her, and she figured, oh, he must be a friend of her roommates. But as she walked across the room, she kind of glanced back. This tapping sound is the sound of someone drumming their fingers on the outside of her door. And so she's looking at her door, wondering who would be doing that. And then all of a sudden, the drumming stops, and it's replaced by the sound of this person scratching on the outside of the door.
What is wrong with people?
You know, is this guy who was out on the couch, is he playing a joke on me? And so she's sitting there wondering if she should just go over there and open the door and tell him to stop.
No.
But before she gets out of her bed, the scratching gets louder and louder and louder until it's so loud that it's kind of menacing. And so Kayla decides she's not going to go out.
The first one wasn't menacing enough.
She pulls out her phone and she texts her roommate and says, hey, can you please come out in the living room and take care of your friend who's harassing me? But she doesn't get a response from that roommate, and the scratching is just still loud as ever. And so she texts her other roommate the same message, come out and take care of your buddy here. But again, she doesn't get a response. And now the scratching
hell no.
and it's been replaced by jiggling of her doorknob. And so now Kayla is just mad because this is obviously a prank and it's a dumb prank. And so she yells out, hey, stop! But it doesn't do anything. And so now Kayla's like, okay.
Yeah, let him know you're in there.
So she calls one of her roommates and they do pick up this time. And Kayla angrily tells them, hey, come out into the living room and tell your friend to knock it off. He's totally harassing me. And her roommate was confused. She's trying to make sense of what Kayla's saying. And she says, Kayla, what are you talking about? What friend are you talking about? Kayla says, the guy sleeping on the couch, the guy in our living room sleeping on the couch. And her roommate said, Kayla, we didn't have anybody over last night. Is somebody out there? You need to call the police. Kayla's adrenaline surged, and she very calmly told her roommate, lock your door immediately. And right then she noticed the jiggling of her doorknob and scratching, and it all stopped. And Kayla's wondering, where did this guy go? And then after a couple of seconds, she heard extremely loud banging coming from across the house where her two roommates shared a room. And it was the sound of this guy trying to smash down their door. And so Kayla's screaming, her roommates are screaming. Kayla manages to dial up 911, and before long there are sirens outside, and Kayla hears the sound of this guy run across the house, and she hears the sliding door open and shut. Police come inside, they search the property, and there's no sign of this guy, and so Kayla and the roommates come outside. They talk to the police, and the police bring them over to their
why you always shut your door? Why you lock your door?
all sorts of scratch marks all over the doorknob.
This is why I lock my door and shut my door. I do not. Oh my God.
And so then their statement about what happened, and they started with Kayla.
I mean, except for the fact that I feel like ghosts can move doors. I'm not dealing with that while I'm sleeping. You're not gonna stress me.
All over the outside of her bedroom door, and all over the doorknob, and all over the latch. And on the ground was a pair of scissors and a knife. And the police told Kayla that it looks like he used those scissors and that knife to open up the side door, and he was trying to use those tools again to open up her door, but for whatever reason, he just couldn't do it. They told Kayla that most likely when she went in the front door, she caught this guy off guard. Maybe he was trying to rob the place, maybe he had just broken in, but either way, Kayla got in and ruined his plans. And so he leapt onto that sofa, the one against that inner wall, to kind of tuck himself away in hopes that maybe Kayla wouldn't look over and see him. And they told her that most likely when she made eye contact with him, she became a witness and therefore a target of opportunity. And had she not locked her door, who knows what would have happened.
No, seriously. Oh. See.
In 2004, 16-year-old Misty Tasker was a typical American teenager living in Live Oak, Florida, which is a small rural town right in the middle of the state. One Saturday evening in January, she and her mother attended a church service. Afterwards, they hopped in her mother's truck and they got on the country highway and began making their way home. Their house was just 20 minutes down this highway. It was a straight shot. And this highway was pretty desolate. There were no street lights. It was actually a dirt road despite being a highway. And it was just thick forest on both sides of the road the entire way. There were no buildings or houses between the church and their neighborhood. Misty's mother was already a very anxious driver who would keep both hands on the wheel. She would sit up and kind of hunch over the wheel and keep her eyes intently focused on the road.
Oh, she's a nervous driver.
Night, her driving anxiety would shoot through the roof because she had really bad eyesight. And so she would go to great lengths to not drive at night to avoid that high level of anxiety. But the church service they had just come from had run a little bit long, and so now Misty's mother is driving with the sun starting to set, and she's going as fast as she can to try to get home before it gets too dark. And so as they're bombing down this road at about 55 miles an hour, despite it being about a 40-mile-per-hour zone, Misty, who's in the passenger seat.
So you nervous, you can't drive, and you going 50. Me, listen, when you certain places just shouldn't be at nighttime.
Little girl sitting on the side of the road. What's a child doing out here in the middle of nowhere?
Yeah.
She says to her mom, "I just saw a little girl." And Misty's mother, who's high up on the wheel, she did not hear Misty the first time.
I ain't hear. She heard her. She didn't want to hear her.
I think I just saw a little girl.
No. See, this is just too scary movie-ish, and that's just not it for me.
She's not prepared to turn the car around.
No. At all. You want me to stop, back up, and
so she's like, "Did you really see someone? Because we gotta get home." And Misty's like, "Mom, I'm pretty
sweetie,
sure."
do you just dark-ass road with no lights, no people, and this little girl just walking?
But she stops the car, she does a three-point turn, and she begins driving back towards this girl. Now, they had only made
Get the guy in my car. Go check.
She had seen this girl. And so pretty quickly, they slowed down because Misty said, "I think she's in this area," and they both began scanning.
My lights are on bright.
That's where she's going to be now that they've turned around. Now, it was starting to get very dark outside, but there was enough light, and they had headlights. They were pretty confident they'd be able to spot this girl. And so as they're slow rolling down the road, they both see this girl a little ways up on the right-hand side.
So she was real.
Her back was to the road. She had her knees tucked up to her chest, and she was rocking back and forth. Misty's mother made a comment that it was a little bit surprising that this girl was out here. I mean, there's really nothing around here. There's no houses, there's no buildings, there's no trails to be walking in, and
flag.
So she just thought it was very strange that this girl.
Yeah, hi.
Especially because there's not any.
I'm sorry, I would never pick nobody up. I am so sorry. You will not catch me lacking. Oh yeah, let me just give you a ride home. Click. And that's my story.
Right up next to her, they realized she was not a little girl. She was a young teenager.
A grown woman.
And as they go right past her, they would expect her to turn around and acknowledge.
I am stressed.
Considering there's no other.
They are stressing me.
And you're just some person sitting on the side of the road. You should definitely turn around and see what's behind you.
Yeah.
But the girl did not acknowledge them. She just continued to have her knees up to her chest.
Oh, well, see.
And so Misty and her mother are a little bit freaked out by this, but they drive past her about 50 meters. Misty's mother does a three-point turn, and when they're looking back down the road, where the girl should now be on their left-hand side, they're oriented back towards their house now, she wasn't there anymore. But there were no streetlights. It was now almost completely pitch dark outside. And so all they
she played y'all.
And so Misty told her mom, drive up a little ways. Maybe the girl stood up and moved, and we just can't see her because she's not in the headlights.
Why are you listening to this one?
Left, shine the light more to the left, but there was no sign of this girl. For good measure, they turned right slightly to shine the lights more to the right-hand side of the road, but there was no sign of this girl. And so Misty and her mother just slowly.
We hearing the same thing.
Road, kind of keeping their eye out on both sides. But after traveling for several minutes, going about 5-10 miles an hour, and seeing no sign of this girl, they decided that, well, she must have just gone back into the woods.
Yeah.
Gone back to wherever it was she came from. And so Misty's mom began picking up speed.
Yeah.
Before long, they had gone maybe 2 or 3 miles away from where they had seen this girl, and they were coming up to this 4-way intersection with stop signs all around. And as they were getting close, Misty's mother gasped because on the other side of the intersection, on the right-hand side, was this girl sitting on the side of the road, back to the road. Her knees are up and she's rocking back and forth. And so Misty's mother pulls up the stop sign.
I promise you.
And both women are just stunned at what they're looking at. They've
flat.
Seen her 2-3
miles
back down the road.
Jeepers Creepers. She would have got that Jeepers Creepers treatment.
His mother looks at her daughter and says, do you think it's a different girl?
How did she get 3 miles up a road from a car?
They just sat there for a minute until Misty started to panic. And she said to her mom, don't stop. I got a bad feeling about
Yeah.
this girl. I don't know what's going on, but you can't stop
How
this girl.
how did she get 3 miles away from her desk?
The situation, no doubt. But she didn't feel good about abandoning this girl in the middle of the night on the side of the highway.
Oh, well.
And so even though she felt a little bit hesitant herself,
You gonna put your kid's life in danger because some random other... How did she get... You're not asking the right questions.
not having it. She said, "Mom, do not stop."
Okay, I would have to argue with you there.
But Misty's mom let up off the brake and began slow rolling
Yeah.
past this intersection. And now at this point,
Slow rolling? Girl, you should have been flooring that. Where is the anxiety you had at the beginning?
front of her seat, and she closes her eyes and covers her ears, and she just continues to beg her mother to just please keep going.
Listen, I promise you, my foot would have made my way over there. I would have made my foot over there with you. You would have hit that brake and I would have hit that gas. Would have been, the car would have been rocking.
Misty or her mother. So Misty's mother turns to her daughter and says, "Please roll down your window." And Misty refuses.
Oh my God, so she could snatch one of us out of the car?
She's crying and she's still begging her mother to please just go home. And so Misty's mother, frustrated, reaches across the passenger seat and grabs the knob to roll down the window.
You gonna roll down my window?
And Misty, who's down in the footwell, all she remembers is sitting there covering up her ears, and she's crying, and she opens her eyes and she's looking up towards her mom, who's reaching over the seat, and her mom yells out to this girl. And Misty remembers looking at her mom, who suddenly recoils in horror and screams, and then they take off like crazy, flying down the road. Misty jumps out of the footwell, and she's looking at her mom, and she's like, "What's happening? What just happened? What did you see?" And her mom's got her hand over her mouth, and she's speeding down the road, and she's crying now, and she's looking at Misty, and she just doesn't have the words to describe what she just saw. And so Misty's asking her,
"Oh, no, don't be shocked now." Definitely wasn't a black family.
She didn't have a face. She didn't have a face. It was hollow. There was nothing on her face when she looked at me. And so Misty screams and she's crying, and her mom is crying, and they speed home. They're home.
I promise you, I would have called a flight just to pass that road. I would have caught a flight from I would have made a way. I would never have took that street again. Do you hear me? Never again in my life. I would have drove around states to get back. I don't give a what's something else like. Nope.
They looked for any sign of anybody out there, but there wasn't. There was never any trace of that girl.
Thankfully. Where's her?
2016, a 25-year-old Wall Street biker named Matt was camping near Mount Rainier in Washington State. His job was so hectic that in the rare times he got a chance to, he would disappear into the wilderness for a few days to clear his head. Despite living in one of the biggest cities in the world, Matt was actually a very competent outdoorsman. And so for this trip, he decided he would stay way off any trail, deep in the backcountry in random locations. On the first night, he found a nice clearing in the trees, and so he set up his campsite there. He ate some food over his fire, he pitched his tent, climbed inside, and within a few minutes, he was fast asleep. Several hours later, Matt woke up to some strange sounds coming from outside of his tent. It sounded like a couple of animals, or maybe one animal, moving around right outside. And so after a while of just hearing this constant sound, he rolled over and he barely unzipped his tent flap just to look out and see if he could see whatever animal it was. And what he saw shocked him. There was a man sitting in front of his fire pit. There was no fire in his fire pit. And the guy was just sitting there with his hands on his knees, looking straight down. And periodically, he would just kick his feet in the ashes of the fire pit. And Matt didn't even know what to do, so he's just looking at him through this little tiny gap in his tent. And this man all of a sudden looks up directly at Matt and makes eye contact with him. And the guy's eyes go wide, and he stands up, turns around, and runs away from Matt's campsite. Matt has no idea how to react to this, and so he just...
I want to go camping so bad. But the way my tent will look at artillery
who is this guy? I am in the middle of
bunker.
In the backcountry of Washington State. How long was he sitting outside there for? What does he want? And so as Matt is trying to make sense of this totally weird thing, he's thinking, okay...
You're sitting there trying to figure out why he's outside your tent when you should be packing up and leaving. Why is there somebody standing over your tent? Y'all are not asking the right questions. Y'all cannot be my... Y'all cannot be around me. Y'all would stress me. He zipped it up. Oh, look, this thin piece of this. This thin thing is gonna save me.
And so after
And some wiggly ass metal rods are gonna save my life because I zipped it up.
outside, and after a little bit of
Zippers break.
this strange incident, Matt started to tell himself that all that was is some guy happened to set up his campsite nearby. It is possible, albeit
Okay, why is he standing over your tent?
and maybe he was just intoxicated and he wandered over here. And
Why would he run?
things have happened, so that's probably
An intoxicated person ain't gonna just run for
nothing to worry about.
cause you looked at him.
He began hiking into the forest. Matt didn't have a planned route. Instead, he had a map and a compass. And he began just kind of wandering.
He trying to black explain himself about that shit. Yeah. When you hear a noise
in kind of random zigzag directions, he found a nice clearing.
and you're like, oh, it's just probably this. It's probably this.
At night, he set up a fire and he was eating some food near his fire. And as he's sitting there, he hears rustling coming from behind him. He's pretty sure
Yeah, he's back clearly.
around and he doesn't see anything. He goes back to eat his food.
What is this shadow in the back of his video? Is that a tree? It looks like Umu. One Piece fans know.
Turned around and remained motionless and just listened, expecting to see maybe a deer come out of the woods. But instead, he hears a man's voice come out of the darkness and says, "You know how to get to Bell's Canyon?" Matt's heart starts racing. He knows.
Oh, now you terrified?
It has to be the same guy he saw 2 days ago. Because they are in the middle of nowhere. He hasn't seen any other hikers or campers or anyone. And clearly this guy has the ability to sneak up on him.
Clearly.
What does this guy want? I just spent the past 2 days hiking in random directions for 15 miles.
This motherfucker has been trailing you. You should have went home 2 days ago.
And then there's silence.
This way to go by yourself.
And Matt, one part of him is thinking, I hope this guy does not come into the light. I hope he just goes away. The other part of him is thinking, well, maybe this is a different person that is lost. And they're looking for this place called Bell's Canyon, and they'll come into the light. It'll be a big relief. I'll send them on their merry way, and everything.
Be fucking for real.
As Matt is having this wishful thinking, the voice from the
delusional thinking.
Closer, but instead asks the same question a bit more forcibly this time. Do you know how to get to Bell's Canyon? This time, Matt did not respond. Now he was scared. This is not some friendly hiker looking for directions.
This is somebody ready to snatch you up and chop you.
He knew he had to do something.
Yeah.
To try to take control of this situation. And so he took a deep breath. He reached down and grabbed his flashlight. And in one swift motion, he lifted his light up and shined it in the direction of this guy's voice. And what he saw was this guy from 2 days ago looking out from behind a tree right in Matt's direction. He was
hiding behind a tree, asking for directions.
And Matt kind of instinctively lowered his light, but now he was too scared to raise it again. And now he knows it's the same guy. This guy.
Oh my God. I'm leaving everything, grabbing, and it's too late now because you know you hiked yourself about it. Ain't nothing you can do but run.
And this guy, he just stayed out there. Matt didn't hear a move. It was just a complete standstill. And then the silence was broken yet again by this voice, except somehow he had moved even closer to Matt. And when he came through, the same question, do you know how to get to Bell's Canyon?
No, I don't, sir. I don't. Oh my God. I'm either gonna fight or I'm gonna bolt. Okay, Hussein Bolt.
Matt, not knowing any better, just began running after him. But he only ran for about 30 seconds before he realized.
Why are you chasing? This is how y'all die.
And this guy's already long gone. He somehow managed to run immediately so far away.
They know who to pray. They just find the,
He's thinking to himself, what
you know,
I
the.
have no cell phone service. No one even knows where I am because I didn't chart a course. I didn't tell anyone where I was going to be. And so Matt just grabbed his knife and stood in the middle of the campsite. And for hours and hours, he just kept looking around, expecting this guy to show up again or start speaking to him from somewhere out in the darkness. It was absolutely horrifying. Finally, by about 3 in the morning, Matt was so tired that he had to go to sleep. He hadn't heard this guy again. He didn't see him again.
Yeah. There was a guy hiding behind a tree.
He's going to pack up his campsite and begin this epic journey back to his car.
Yelling, do I know where somewhere is?
Very restless next couple of hours.
Then he did it again, got closer somehow.
Packed up his stuff and began practically running in the direction of his car. All day as he was hiking,
Yeah.
he kept looking over his shoulder.
Yeah. Now he got some sense.
Followed him for multiple days over.
Clearly he made it out of there alive because we got the story. Barely.
Was really high.
Barely made it out of there alive.
Matt just felt like he was being watched. He was totally terrified. And then the sun started to go down, and Matt knew he would have to camp out again. So he found a clearing in the trees.
Like that.
His campsite, and he was so tired from running basically all day, and he was so mentally exhausted from this experience that he just got in his tent and fell asleep very quickly. But several hours later,
I lost for words.
The sound of somebody walking around his tent. He knew it had to be this guy. He's still.
Where's your gun, sir?
To the parking lot. And so this guy and so Matt sat up in his tent, he clutched his knife, and for hours and hours and hours, all night, this guy just walked around this campsite.
Are you kidding me?
Around 4 or 5 in the morning, he scampered off. When the sun finally came up, Matt
a menace.
Packed up his stuff and literally just began running in the direction
of
the car, hoping that maybe he could get there.
I'm going to the gym after this.
All day as he moved, he's looking over his shoulder.
You won't ever catch me lacking, sir. You won't catch me lacking. How far away from the road is this man? I done had like 3, 4 5 sunsets by now. 6 sunsets. A bunch of sunsets. That should not have been that far.
Grabbed his knife and sat there, knowing this guy was somewhere out there. And so Matt climbed inside of his tent. He zipped it up behind him. He grabbed his knife.
Stop zipping your tent. There's nothing you could do if that man just sits on your damn tent.
He didn't hear him. Matt started to wonder, maybe this guy has left me alone. Finally, maybe he's not following me anymore. And so Matt, who was totally exhausted, laid down to go to sleep. And then, as he's laying there from somewhere out in the woods, do you know how to get to Bell's Canyon? Matt immediately sat up, his heart began racing.
Oh my God!
He might have a heart attack.
No.
He didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to say, so he just sat there holding his.
I would have had a heart attack. I would have had a heart attack.
Campsite making animal sounds, and he would stop periodically.
I wonder if he's like a ghost.
He'd kick up leaves, and then he'd run past his campsite again, over and over and over again, until the sun finally came up and this guy scampered off back into the woods. Matt didn't waste any time. He leapt out of his tent, packed his stuff up.
Stop packing. I get it. He needs somewhere. So even if it's a mental thing, he needs somewhere to feel safe. He needs somewhere to feel safe. I get it. I get it. But
finally got some reception, and he considered calling the police about this guy, but he thought, what am I going to tell them? He didn't commit a crime. He was just terrifying. And so he decided not to call the police. He finally flew back. I
would never have went hiking again. That would have been for me. You would have never caught me. I never would have made it without you. Literally.
Without the use of a flashlight, without any gear, and all he ever said to Matt was, "Do you know how to get to Bell's Canyon?"
And this damn photo is destroying me.